Good afternoon, everyone. This is Professor Hill. Short video for our class, Introduction to Ethics Philosophy 2306 here at St. Philip's College for the fall of 2022. Now, we are at the beginning of our fall term. Today is Friday, the 26th of August. We're at the end of our first week. It's going to be a long semester, 16 weeks from now to December. But that's good because it gives us time to read, to write, to think our way through some complex issues. I wanted to say today, Friday the 26th, the first thing we have is the welcome and introductions. And as I said previously, I want you to introduce yourself to the class and then go through and comment on at least two of your classmates, because that's the habit we're going to need for Sunday night. This Sunday is the first essay that's due as we establish our pattern of read a chapter, look at a case study, and apply some of the concepts from that chapter to it, write a short essay, post that up, and then when we do, read through and look at some of the essays of your classmates and comment on at least two of those. So that's the whole post-comment thing. It's a way to generate some conversation like we would have in class, but here we're doing it all online. Some people comment on more than two, which is perfectly fine, but two, you need to do at least two. So that all being said, Wednesday, I did a little bit about our current case study, Jenni Lake, which is in the module. And I'd mentioned that it's more complicated than it first looks, in part because there's this whole issue about Jenni being a minor. It's really her mom's decision in this particular case. Now, like I mentioned on Wednesday, they're in kind of agreement. So there wasn't a conflict there. But from Jenni's point of view, she made a decision and her mom agreed with her. In reality, legally, it was the mom who was getting Jenni's opinion about it, wanted to know how she felt about it, but she was ultimately making the decision that yes, she would allow Jenni to stop her treatment and have the pregnancy go for full term, which, as we know, worked. Little Chad Michael was born healthy, although she dies days later, less than 2 weeks later. Now, it's a tragic story. It's a terrible outcome, which we knew it was going to be sad from the beginning. There was just a no-win situation there. And so a difficult ethical choice. Again, it mirrors the fact that we have to face these in life. Believe me, if you have family, if you have friends, you're going to face some difficult ethical choices in your life. It's just part of being a human being. So hopefully the idea is that we talk about it ahead of time. We think our way through these so that we're better prepared to handle those when they become real ethical crises for us. And we have to make difficult decisions, sometimes relatively quickly. So I mentioned on Wednesday that there's another case we'll look at a little bit more in depth later, but I wanted to mention it now because it's an interesting foil to Jenni Lake's case. It's about another 17-year-old girl who has cancer and ends up refusing treatment like Jenni. However, there's some significant differences, and I want to talk about them because it casts some interesting light onto the Jenni Lake case, which we're looking at this weekend for our Sunday night deadline. This is a story of Cassandra Callender. And she was 17, and she's diagnosed with a different type of cancer. This is a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, but it's cancer. It's serious. It's fatal if untreated. But in her case, they know that chemotherapy works very well. It's very effective against the type of cancer that she has at the stage she has it. So the doctors say to her and her mother, the two of them, hey, look, good news. It's bad news you got cancer. It's really serious, but the good news is we have an effective treatment, and there's never any guarantees with this, but we can tell you that in the past, people diagnosed with your cancer at this stage and go through this treatment that 5 years later, 85% of them are in remission. They're alive and they're doing well. Now, again, there's never any guarantees. It might come back, but their point is we have an effective strategy. So let's get started. Let's start that chemotherapy. In this case, Cassandra, again, 17-year-old minor, says, no, I'm not going to do this. And the doctors are kind of, well, what's your concern? She's like, well, I read on the internet that this is poison and that y'all are trying to kill me and that this is a terrible idea and that I can't trust y'all. The doctor's like, well, okay, hold on. We're actually here trying to help you. And yeah, the chemotherapy is a poison in that it kills the cancer cells. We're going to try to target it. And listen, it will make you sick. People get nauseous, they lose their hair. It can be very difficult. But if it kills the cancer cells, that will help you stay alive. That's the whole point. We're here trying to help you. She's like, I'm not having anything of it. So the doctors think, well, okay, but hey, good news is it's not really her decision after all. Let's turn to the mom and say to the mom, look, it's really actually your call. And you need to do this for the sake of your daughter. I'm sure as a parent, mama bear principle, that you want to protect your daughter. You want to help save your daughter's life because she has cancer. It's going to kill her unless we do this. So you need to, sign right here. Let's get this going. And the mom says, oh no, who do you think showed her all these websites? My God, you people are all quacks. You're trying to kill her. Thanks for the diagnosis, but we're going to do what's really good for her, which is that, we looked at some other websites out there, and if we buy these vitamins or we do these alternative medical practices, which in this case were, the polite way to say this is that they were non-effective, not rational based exploitation, as people selling sugar pills and calling them cures. This is a snake oil salesman who's trying to say, don't spend your money at the hospital, buy this nonsense out of the back of my car. And if you do X, Y, and Z, you'll, and again, it was literally like pyramids and crystals and stuff, which is not medically effective, not rationally based. So it turns out that they do not start the treatment. And so the doctors look at each other and they're like, well, what can we do? And it turns out that if the mom was refusing treatment for herself, there's really not a lot they would do. They would say, well, the patients make the decisions. We offer options as medical professionals, but it's up to them to determine the course of action, even if we disagree with it. But that's not the case here, is it? The mom's making decisions for the minor child. And so the doctors look at each other and go, she's endangering the life of her child. We need to go to court. Let's go get a court order and say, this parent, for whatever reason, is making choices. It's endangering the life of their minor child. We need to go in there and take this girl away from her parents, in this case, the mom, and get her the medical treatment she needs. And you know what? That's exactly what they did. They got lawyers. They went to a judge. They explained the situation. And just like you would do with what's called a TPR, termination of parental rights, they got Child Protective Services involved, right? Or where this was happening, it was the Department of Families. Anyway, it turns out that they go in and they say, look, we're here with Child Protective Services, with the police, with a court order, and we're here to take the girl to the hospital and treat her. Now, I got to tell you, The girl was taken into custody and taken to the hospital. The mom flips out, calls a lawyer, but the lawyer's like, look, they got a court order. They did this completely legally. You don't really have, you can't really do anything. So sure enough, what happens is over the next few months, because this happened right as Cassandra was turning 17, she spends months getting the treatment she needs. And guess what? It works. And they get to the end. She hasn't turned 18 yet, but they release her back to the mom because they were like, look, we only did this so we could treat her and save her life. Now that that's done, we're going to give her back to the mom. Well, the mom is, again, extraordinarily unhappy. The daughter's unhappy. She's been complaining about this the whole time. And then she turns 18. So then it becomes a moot point. By the way, what's interesting is this story has a sad ending, which is that she turns 18 and then 19. And then what happens is she meets a guy, she moves in with a guy, and two things happen. She becomes pregnant and actually has twins, two beautiful little kids, but also the cancer comes back. She has a recurrence of the lymphoma. And of course, what does she do when it comes back? She's like, haha, now it's up to me. I don't have to do your damn chemotherapy. And she gets sicker and sicker. And of course, she's reading websites that are like, oh, if you just do this exercise or take these vitamins, and she's getting sicker and sicker. She finally went to Mexico to try to do some, and again, to call it even experimental treatment gives it too much credence. To do some other, again, non-scientific, non-medical based treatment for which she pays a bunch of money and is taken advantage of, and then finally goes back home again to Connecticut. But it turns out that she gets sicker and sicker. Well, finally, she gets so sick, she's like, I really need to go to the hospital. So she goes to the doctors, and they're like, look, yes, of course, come in, we will treat you, but you need to know that now that you've waited so long, you're at such an advanced stage of this, there's just not much we can do. And they did try to help her, but she ends up passing away. She died. The mother, by the way, comes out after the funeral and says that she is extraordinarily angry with, wait for it, the doctors, and blames them for her daughter's death. Now, here's the thing about it. And the reason I mentioned this story, again, another terrible, tragic story. But think about this. What about Jenni Lake? Jenni Lake's mom makes the decision to stop her chemotherapy. And the doctors went, okay, why didn't her doctors go get lawyers and go get a court order and insist that Jenni Lake keep doing her chemotherapy? Now, again, I think it's multifactorial. I think the cancers were different. I think the risks involved and the probabilities are different. But of course, the big factor is that Jenni was pregnant and Cassandra wasn't. I think the doctors backed off and allowed their patient to die. They allowed the mom to endanger the life of her daughter, of her minor child, because of the pregnancy. I don't know. I think there's an interesting argument to be made that the doctors for Jenni should have done what the doctors did with Cassandra, which was, insist on saving the life of this minor child, even though the parent was making decisions that endangered that life. And in fact, in Jenni's case, resulted in her death. The doctors signed off on that. That to me is a really gray ethical decision. Uh, Now, again, don't get lost in the whole uh, it's Jenni's decision thing. Lots of people want to go down that path, but like I said on Wednesday, that works if Jenni goes to uh, a court, like the doctors did with Cassandra, and gets an emancipation order or fights it. I mean, but the doctors didn't even give her anything to fight. They just said, "Oh, okay." They just rolled over and said, "Yeah, sure. If you want to kill yourself, you want to make a decision to stop your life-saving treatment that we're telling you will result in your death. Sure, we're going to go ahead and just take a pass and let you do that. Let the mom do that." Because again, they're not even talking to Jenni. They're talking to the mom. They're saying, "We're going to allow you to make a decision that's not just going to dangerous, but is going to result in the death of your child. And we as doctors are going to allow you to make those decisions and have our patients die as a result of them. Our minor child patients die as a result of those decisions you make." Pretty good argument that they should have gotten lawyers and gone to court. I don't know. What do you think? It's a tough call. It's a tough decision. And like I said, this is not an easy case. If you look at it on the surface and you think, "Oh, this is simple," man, there's a lot kicking around in this story. So think about that as you are thinking about the case study. You're finishing chapter 1, and you're thinking about what in there applies to this situation. It's a lot to think about. So I'm going to leave you with that on this Good Friday afternoon. Take care, good people, and I'll talk to you soon.